So last week I talked a little bit about being a Jedi. So here is more on being a Jedi and priming in art. On being a Jedi. No human being has been gifted with the ability to read another's mind. We can build narratives in our own mind of what others believe, based on what they've chosen to communicate, but we can only approximate from that through our individual lens on reality. When one observes any form of media, its meaning can morph based on points of reference that the observer has absorbed in the past. Skilled purveyors of media, may it be art, journalism, etc., know how their audience has been primed. They present new information accordingly. An example of priming in art, an experimental musician can prime both themselves and their audience for a new artistic direction by dabbling in those ideas with a side project or a smaller release. When the time comes for a bigger statement, all parties are ready. However, how the musician frames their experimental work is important to how they proceed. If viewed as an A/B test to see how it impacted their audience, all parties are ready, including those that walked away. It may boil down to what the artist prioritizes: expression or commerce. Okay, so we'll start from the top here. On being a Jedi. No human being has been gifted with the ability to read another's mind. So mind reading, of course, is impossible. I shouldn't have to tell you that. You should know it. But if you've been on Twitter lately, well, you might have forgotten. Because a lot of people like to straw man, they like to mind read, they like to project about what you're thinking. It makes it easier. If they have an easy target to knock down, they've presented, you don't really have a chance to respond. They just present you as they see you, and then you listen to them, make up some word salad. So, no mind reading, and we build narratives of what other people are like in our minds. We build narratives of what others believe based on what they've chosen to communicate. So whatever they've given us for information about themselves, and again, you can barely say anything outside of this narrow window, depending on whose window it is. If it's the social justice left's window, it's rather small. They've gotten rid of so many words using the modern religion of censorship that it's getting harder and harder. They can go around, talking about what they consider to be the oppressor all day, but, anything outside the code of political correctness is not allowed. So people do choose to communicate things. They have body language, they have words, they have behaviors. If someone does something, it's perfectly acceptable to go, well, hey, based on your actions and words, I'm making a judgment call. That makes sense. But we can really only approximate from that information because we have our individual lens on reality. We have our own window into the world, and it's very biased. It's very conditioned. We have our good associations, we have our bad associations. And we have things we like, we have things we don't like. It goes on, and it's all very subjective. There are some objective truths. We talked about objective morality just a little while ago, but people have their own individual look. They don't see it through the group lens, is what I'm saying. Not naturally. That is something you put on top of your individual lens. You might put a group filter on it. You might say, as the New York Times did with their 1619 project, everything is racism. If you change the frame, you change the game. Well, we're changing the frame to racism everywhere. And we're going with this for the 2020 election, in which, we have marked President Trump as a racist. We just throw that adjective before every sentence to do with Trump. Racist comment. Well, what's racist about that comment? Oh, well, it's racist because we said it was. We just threw the word racist on it. It's a very powerful system. Just like the nickname system. You put a nickname on somebody, then people go, wait, is Joe sleepy? Is Joe Biden Sleepy Joe? Is Jeb Bush low energy? I don't know. I didn't think it before, but now that there's a word, there's an adjective before his name, I'm starting to see it. I'm starting to get that view. It modifies your filter on the situation when somebody puts an adjective, when they prime you to view something differently. When one observes any form of media, its meaning can morph based on points of reference that the observer has absorbed in the past. So, of course, two people can look at one situation and see entirely different things. They can look at one piece of art, like the Chappelle special, and see something different. They can see two different sides of the same thing. So those that like politically correct stuff don't like Chappelle. Those that like politically incorrect stuff can handle Chappelle, because there's so many negative associations with all those things. They've been socially engineered. They've been conditioned by themselves, by their family, friends, the media, and even academia and state, the full range of the modern religion that is institutions. They've gotten all these negative associations. Now, how can you like somebody? How can you laugh at something that has so much negativity as a focal core part of it? It becomes almost impossible. That's why, I think that when you have these media outlets that have been, they're giving the Chappelle special all these negative reviews, yeah, they have the right to give their opinion. It's subjective. Humor is subjective. But the fact is that a lot of these outlets, they have gone ahead with a full frontal, full force intersectional agenda where they're trying to police speech. They're trying to make sure you use the right pronouns. And Jordan Peterson actually came to prominence because he argued with this idea. But they try to make sure you stay within that narrow Overton window of acceptable dialogue. If you go outside, you're an extremist. You're a hater. So you need to stay inside. But they've fortified that message. They've reinforced that message so many times through their articles, through all the media, the echo chambers they allow themselves to not just vacation in, but live in. They have gotten all these specific associations, which then when you try to take some information that, contradicts that, well, they have their confirmation bias and they go, well, how can I don't even want to look at that. How can I take it in if when I first see it, the first impression is, I don't want to let that negative stuff in. I'm having a good day. I don't want negative stuff in my day. And that negative stuff, of course, is subjective. So, yeah, they have points of reference from the past. And, of course, the skilled purveyors of media, may it be art, journalism, stand-up comedy, for instance, they know how their audience has been primed. So if anybody is actually good at what they're doing when it comes to entertainment, for example, they do read what their critics are saying. They read what the clients are saying, the viewers, the audience they have. They're making sure that they stay on the same page as their clientele. They want to know what they like so they can incorporate it in their act, for example. If you're talking about the stand-up comedy, they want to pace their audience. They want to, make sure they're primed. They might even tell you, well, before you listen to this new album of mine, check out this last one, or check out these other ones over here, because maybe if you listen to this more experimental one, if you like that, oh, this is more of that. It's just more mainstream, which is what we're getting to next. So they do. A really good purveyor, a really skilled artist will know how their audience has been primed and present new information accordingly. So they'll walk them up the steps from, a more accessible work, but once you've gotten used to it, you're bored with it. They'll bring you to something that's a little bit more intense, that, pushes the envelope, ups the ante, and starts to shock you and surprise you again in ways you didn't think possible, which is even crazier, even more impressive when it's something or somebody that's very familiar to you, and then they give you something that's new, and they blow your mind. They blow your mind right away. Because you didn't know that they were capable of that. They didn't know that you were capable of surprising them. And people love to be surprised. But it's better if they have a positive association first. So an example of priming in art, an experimental musician can prime both themselves, so they can get ready. Practice makes perfect. They can get ready, and their audience can get ready for a new artistic direction by dabbling in those ideas with a side project or a smaller release. So you'll often see somebody not go full, if you're talking about music, you'll see an experimental artist or even a mainstream artist. But if they're trying something new, you might see like an EP or something. You might not see the full artistic evolution showing itself on an LP because there's a risk-reward factor in there. And that has to do with expression and commerce. Sometimes if you're having a record financed by a record company, the record company might go, well, we like what you're doing, but we don't think it's going to sell. So maybe you should make this a smaller release. We won't promote it as much. It'll be out there. You can do maybe a little bit of a tour. But in general, we don't have a lot of faith in the commercial ability of this release. So maybe make it smaller. See how it does. A/B test. See how it works. Do the people like it? Do they want more of it? Do they want less of it? Do they want you to go back to your roots? And if you're an artist, that's an unlucky place to be because you might be forced to compromise artistically, and nobody likes to do that. So when the time comes for a bigger statement, all parties are ready. The audience is ready, and the entertainer is ready. The purveyor of the art is ready. However, how the musician frames their experimental work is important to how they proceed. Like I said, it's good to do a smaller, test small, do a smaller release, and then go ahead and see if it brings any new people in, if it satisfies the older people that have been with you for a long time. And then, of course, do an A/B test, see how it impacted your audience. And then, all parties are ready, which means that some people chose to go another way. They chose not to continue with you. They said, well, you've turned me off. It's going to take an act of God to bring me back into the circle, into the tent. But the people that, this is the thing they say about Twitter, actually. They say about YouTube and social media. Your subscribers, the followers you have, the ones that stick with you, are the ones you really want to cater to, the ones you really care about. You'll have lots of people passing through. They'll see one tweet of yours. They'll watch one video and they'll go, yeah, like and subscribe. Or they'll like a tweet. They'll retweet a tweet. And then they'll follow you. But then within about 3, 4, 5 more tweets, maybe more than that, if they didn't mute you, they'll see your stuff and they'll go, well, this isn't quite what I signed up for. I like that other thing you said, but you haven't talked about that in a while. And, time is the currency, and my attention is limited, so I'm going to go back and either mute you or unfollow you. And it's meritocratic. Like, I find merit in what you were saying before. I don't find merit in it now, so I'm going to go and vote with my follow button or my wallet. So you'll have people walking away, but it really boils down to what the artist prioritizes. Do they care about sticking to their guns? And of course, I'm not talking about real guns. We did have another shooting in Texas this week, and I want to put out a word. I'm very sorry to hear about the events of the past week. I think it was Odessa. Had another mass shooting. I think 12 people might have been killed. But these artists, they stick to their guns. And they can either stick to their guns for expression, or they can go in a more commercial direction and say, well, we want to get bigger. We want to do something that's more accessible. We want more people to take it in because we like our audience. We love you guys, but we kind of know you'll be there most likely. So why don't we go in this other direction and see if we can pull in more people and become, see if we can create a larger mirror for people to see themselves in us. It's a large part of it. So